back with us on the conversation. Well, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called an election that analysts said he wasn't compelled to call. The end result, after spending $600 million plus on the election campaign, he basically came out of the election with the same number of seats that he went in, with almost a zero-sum gain. In the Bahamas, the incumbent FNM called an election that analysts said, well, you didn't have to call. And the end result was that they were trounced at the polls, winning only 7 of the 39 seats. The PLP winning the other 32, the PLP now forming the government, a cabinet in place and is already working. We have the pleasure now of speaking with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service, Fred Mitchell, Chairman of the PLP. Minister, as Foreign Affairs Minister, your responsibility is awesome at this point because you have to be leading those negotiations to get the life juice right now, the vaccine, so that your population can be protected and that the vital tourism industry can begin to flourish once again. In terms of the work plan in front of you, what is your area of priority now as you look to get enough supply and coverage in the Bahamas to bring back the good times?
Well, clearly it is the first, I think, with that is to talk to the Americans. The Americans have been quite generous with the vaccine supply throughout the CARICOM region. And of course, working with the World Health Organization at PAHO and the systems which produced the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the first sort of supply for our countries. So that's what I've been doing. I was with the U.S. Charge this morning here. We're seeking for the Prime Minister who's going up to the UN to give his the first of his annual addresses to the UN to meet with the Americans again and to reach out to them to stress the importance of supply. There are issues with the supply, which we're concerned about with the vaccine. And so job number one for me is to be on my bike to try and get that issue resolved. Beyond that, I think it is engagement with the international community, particularly our CARICOM partners, because nothing can, I think, happen successfully for this region unless all of us work together on that issue. And we're really grateful to the governments of Antigua and Barbuda and Trinidad and Tobago for loaning us supplies of vaccines until we get our supply replenished.
Minister, there is likely to be a major policy issue that you will have to grapple with, you and the administration, over the next few weeks and months, and that's whether or not to impose a vaccine mandate. Where is your feeling on this? Based on how you know Bahamians to be and the vital importance of the tourism industry and beyond that, just life and the normalcy of life, do you think you'll have to go in that direction? Will the people be receptive to such a mandate, such an edict?
Well, I'm hoping to avoid that under all circumstances as a kind of libertarian or, promoter of individual freedom. I don't think we should impose our choices on people. Nevertheless, this is a serious public health issue. And we thought that the past administration did not employ sufficient resources on public education. Public education is very important. And I think that will be where we will spend put our emphasis, which is on more public education about why you ought to do this. At this time, if you look at the census data and not the actual data, it looks like about 20% of the population has been inoculated with 2 jabs. It looks to me as if you've got, I think the experts say we have to get up to 70%, and it's been going quite slow. Now, curiously enough, what's helped the situation in the last few days is the fact that the United States has now said that you need to get a vaccine in order to go to the U.S. come November. For Bahamians, that's a very important signal. Travel to U.S. is essential for people, and that has pushed the lines higher than we've seen in weeks, that single announcement. So that being said, the question is the supply side. We don't want to have a situation where we're telling people, come get vaccinated, and then there's no supply. So that's why my job, as I said, job one is to try and keep the supply going. And we can only do that since we don't manufacture it ourselves, is by speaking to our international partners. But the short answer to your question is no, we don't think mandates is the mandate is the way to go. We think the way to go is public education.
If we disaggregate a little bit though, Minister, and go by industry, Well, of course, you know about many areas of government, but in tourism, would you support any plan to mandate vaccination among tourism workers, given their vital importance to the overall economic picture in your country?
Well, no, I can't say what we won't do. I mean, you never say what you won't do, if that makes any sense. But certainly that's not in contemplation, because people, given a logical presentation, will take the vaccine, I believe, in the long term and the medium term, but they need to be convinced to do so. The fact is, though, through the private law, as opposed to the public law, employers have already been saying, have been designing means to persuade, if you want to put it that way, people to get vaccinated. And that's so far been working. So what we have now in the tourism sector is a combination of vaccinated individuals and people who test on a regular basis. And I think for the foreseeable future, that's going to be the position.
You speak a lot about the quality of the relationship, and justifiably so, between Bahamas and the United States, of course. So would that in any way, Minister, perhaps put a damper on any efforts by you on behalf of the government and people of the Bahamas to perhaps seek vaccine supply sources from, say, the Chinese with their vaccine, and the Russians, the Sinopharm from China, the Sputnik from Russia, or to other places where, of course, you know that there are regular geopolitical joustings between themselves and the U.S. Are you limiting yourself and depending on the U.S., or are you having a clean slate to go and find the vaccine supply sources wherever they exist?
Well, there's no ideological or medical reason not to look elsewhere. But the fact is, from a marketing point of view, with the strong anti-vaccine sentiment, and there's some xenophobia on the other side, it simply makes sense to deal with the U.S. People watch U.S. television, the promotions of the U.S. In fact, our experts have told us that the Bahamian population chooses Pfizer. They won't even take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is an American vaccine. And that they believe largely has to do with the promotions for Pfizer in the United States. So it just makes sense for us to do that. We understand, for example, I was talking to some experts in the Dominican Republic. They've used the Chinese vaccine. The Chinese vaccine is available. It works, so there's no medical reason why not. But as I say, for marketing reasons, it simply makes sense to deal with the United States.
On the size of the cabinet, Minister, as we wrap up this interview, people say, well, you know, this cabinet is larger than the one that the previous administration had at 22, and you have, 5 women in there, 5 of 22, that works out to about, 23%. There are 7 women in the parliament, overall 7 of the 39. In terms of the size of the cabinet and the responsibilities given to individuals, is the executive too large, you would say, for the task at hand, or just about right?
No, what I say is I learned over many years in this business not to second guess what prime ministers do. This is the prime minister's call, his prerogative, his mandate on the Constitution. We just elected him. We elected him to trust his judgment as to how to manage the country going forward. I'm one of his ministers, and I serve, obviously, in the cabinet, which is the size it is. So I think it is his judgment, and I support that judgment, that this will be adequate to the task of managing the country going forward. Of course, there will be criticisms, but I think let's see how it works. And I think it will work well. We look like we have a good team. We have a large majority. As you know, from a practical political point of view, there are internal dynamics which are at work in parties. And large majorities in our country, those majorities have been inherently unstable politically, can't be sustained. Mr. Davis will be able, I think, with his management style, to be the first of the prime ministers in many, many decades to be able to have a stable government which lasts for the term. As chair of the party, that's what I spent my time doing before, is trying to coach people to understand the nature of politics, that the business is you must survive, that you have to be a team, and I think we put together a good team.
One of the mistakes people make, Minister, is when they are in opposition, there is a lot of time spent on building the party and putting the party in shape to be sold effectively to the electorate. as worthy of being entrusted with the responsibility of government. But once said party goes into government, there's a period where the party almost floats by itself. It's almost like flotsam, going the way of the waves. And at a later juncture, the party machinery starts to attempt to crank up to get itself ready for another election. And that almost always spells doom at the polls. As chairman, as the man in charge of the party itself, is it that while the business of governance is already underway from the PLP's perspective, that the issues of the party and getting the party in shape and aligning the party to be able to defend this title, that work has already started?
It has for me. First of all, given my seniority, I'm sure there would have been other jobs that people would expect me to take on as opposed to where I am and had been before, twice before, or three times before. But my point to the leader of the party was precisely the point you make. And that is that the cycle of one-term governments must stop with this one. It has not been good for our country because it is not a stable result. You come, I withdraw what you did, and then I change what you did. I think that must stop. Now, the only way, in my view, to be able to deal with that is to have the party machinery in shape throughout the term, so that people are connected to the politics of governance and not just the mechanical issues which relate to public administration. So that's a priority for me. And I want to help to strengthen the incumbency by supporting members of parliament, teaching them what their roles are, how to deal with some of the issues which arise in constituencies. So that's what I hope to spend some time doing. Now, some people have said, is this compatible with being a government minister? Well, I just go back to Margaret Thatcher. John Selwyn Gummer was the chairman of the Conservative Party, and he served in her cabinet. And I thought when I was a student in London that was a sensible thing to do. There are a number of Caribbean jurisdictions who also do the same thing, where the chairman of the party sits in the cabinet. And I'm hoping that it is in the medium to longer term, the position of the leader that should obtain as well here, because I think that is the safety net to accomplish the end result of re-election in 5 years' time.
Yeah, and if you go by the example of the PNP in Jamaica, where Robert Pickersgill was party chairman they call him chairman for life, and of course he was cabinet minister, several ministries, and the current administration, the JLP, Bobby Montague was party chairman, and of course serving in the cabinet.
Without checking. That's what I thought, and I'm glad, so I'll put that one in my pocket as well.
Excellent. I say this to you in the final few seconds, Minister. Did I hear you say, and I know you're a square shooting hombre, you'll answer the question directly. Did I hear you say that perhaps it is that Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis may have thought of somewhere else he could utilize your vast skills and your expertise, but because of your responsibility with the party and how much you wanted to ensure that those responsibilities were done to the benefit of the party, you asked him to be placed at Foreign Affairs and Public Service? I
did, yes. That was my view, that this was the best of the jobs. He ultimately decides, and I'm pleased to be here. My view was I could serve in any post and I think do an adequate job, but there's no learning curve where I am, and I think it serves the country best and serves our party best, and therefore, in my view, serves the Commonwealth of Bahamas best.
Finally, what can you say to Bahamians about the style and substance of the governance that will come from this PLP administration? And at the same time, what do you want to say to the residents of your constituency who brought you back after turning their backs on you in 2017?
Yes, I want to say a special word to them. I was elected with the largest majority of the history of the constituency, with 65% of the vote to my opponent's 24% of the vote. That was a real affirmation after a very difficult time in 2017, which I completely understand, and water under the bridge, and that's in the past. So I'm deeply grateful to them. I start on Monday with looking at the Foxhill Community Center, making sure the parks are beginning to be upgraded, start getting the jobs going. That's job number one for me, because they've been so faithful to me and to the Progressive Liberal Party. As for the country, I think it's a similar story. I promise as chair, to remain committed to the project Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Someone once described the PNP in Jamaica as the default party in Jamaica. I thought it was an apt expression, whether agreeing or not agreeing with your situation in Jamaica, but I thought it was an apt expression for the Bahamas that the PLP is the default party. We do the nation building, we do the heavy lifting, and we're up to the task again in 2021 and for the next 5 years and hopefully for another term.
Yeah, with 9 electoral wins since 1962, the record shows that the people of the Bahamas love the PLP more than any other party. Minister, I want to thank you for speaking with me today. I want to wish you all the best in your endeavors in your constituency of Fox Hill and, of course, in your capacity as Foreign Affairs and Public Service Minister. And say a special hello for me to our friend here at Sportsmax, Mario Boleg. I called him this morning to congratulate him on being now appointed as Minister of Sport, Youth and Culture.
I'm really pleased at that, really pleased at that. When he was in opposition, we were quite close on developing sports policy. And certainly with our foreign affairs, we'll be dealing with him quite closely on cultural matters because the 50th anniversary of our country's independence comes up in 2 years' time. And we want to have an outreach which will require the input of his culture ministry.
Excellent.
So, yes.
Excellent, sir. Thank you very much. All the best to you.
All right. Blessings.
Good. That's Minister Fred Mitchell. He's in charge of Foreign Affairs and Public Service in Bahamas' new cabinet appointed by the Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis. And he was just speaking with us. Mario Boleg, just to make sure that you get the point, he is a friend of Sportsmax by virtue of his role as the president of the Bahamas Basketball Federation. And he's also served as our NBA analyst. So that's where our affinity with him comes from. It's not politically motivated, but we're happy to see a good man getting a key appointment, and he has a big job ahead of him. Break time on the conversation. We'll talk some more politics and governance issues, but of the Jamaica kind after the break.